Rodney, I hope you're having a great day, sir. Welcome into the game in T-Town.
I'm doing well, Ryan. How are you?
Good. 13 days in. Biggest takeaway from fall camp up until this point?
Oh, the biggest takeaway. Wow. Man, Ryan, I would say this. As you look out at the team as a whole, I'll tell you what I think. I'll throw you one here. I know on your show you like to go out. You like to go out on a limb, so I'll do that for you. How about that?
Yeah,
I think
I just mentioned you a couple of minutes ago, but let's hear it.
I think overall, when you look at this team, this could be the most complete team that Nick Saban's had when you look at offense, defense, and special teams. I do think that the defense is going to might take a little while to kind of gel together. But I think when you look at them athletically, they're very good. I think even on the back end where there's a lot of inexperience, they've got a tremendous amount of athleticism back there. May take a little while to show up defensively, but I think they're going to be really, really good as time goes on. Obviously, they've got a new defensive coordinator calling the shots, Tosh LaPoy, but again, this is Nick Saban's defense. Offensively, I think that they've got a chance to really light it up. They've got firepower at quarterback, wide receiver, tight ends, running backs. I think this offensive line can be really good as they gel. With special teams, I think Jeff Banks, the coordinator's going to do a tremendous job of really organizing those units, and I think the kickers have a chance to be really good. I think both Austin Jones and the grad transfer from Temple and Joseph Bulovas are going to do an outstanding job. However, they split that up and as place kickers. And then I think Skylar DeLong hopefully will do the kind of job that we think he can do. Look, you're not going to be J.K. Scott good, but he's got a chance to be a pretty good kicker and punter himself. So overall, I think this team, Ryan, I'm not going to say that they're going to be the best team that Nick Saban's had, but I think overall they have a chance to be, in each category, one of the best teams Nick Saban's had.
Rodney, we've been asking the question because you brought up the word explosive there. We've been talking about it for the first 90 minutes of the show, and we're trying to go back to years. Forget about Nick Saban, just the Nick Saban era. Yeah. In your opinion, what has been the most explosive offense? And you could even go back to any year that you remember and say this was a very explosive team. Some people have brought up 73. Some others have brought up some other 70 teams. But in your opinion, what has been the most explosive Alabama team that you've witnessed in your lifetime?
Well, the 73 team was really good. Ryan, I think they averaged about, you may go look at it, 43, 44 points a game. They were very explosive. Obviously, they ran the wishbone. They had a couple of quarterbacks that played a lot, Gary Rutledge, Richard Todd. Had a great running back, Wilbur Jackson, among others, in that wishbone. I think they had about 5 or 6 backs that averaged over 6 yards a carry. How do you like that?
Wow.
And those guys played regularly. How explosive were they? I remember on the first play of the 73 game against Tennessee, Gary Rutledge hit Wayne Wheeler on an 80-yard touchdown pass. So they were really explosive. I would say the 77 team with Johnny Davis, Tony Nathan in the backfield with Jeff Rutledge. Stedman Shealy was a sophomore that year. He would come in and really run the option extremely well. Rutledge ran it well, but he was also a great passer. They had Ozzie Newsome, as you probably remember. That was a great, to me, that was a great offensive team. 89, of course, with Homer Smith. The things he did with Gary Hollingsworth that year, that was really a tremendous offensive team. As I'm starting to kind of think, since then, I don't know. But those teams right there really stand out to me.
Rodney, when you think about the teams, and even some of the teams that you were mentioning, not so much maybe in some of the 70s when you kind of knew what they wanted to do, but one of the things that's key to me is balance. When you line up against a team and they don't really know what you want to do, and that you can beat a team multiple different ways.
Yeah. Are you asking me if that's what this team might be able to do?
I guess maybe that's what I think. When I think about an offense that's the most dangerous is that they could beat you multiple different ways. I mean, I remember Amari Cooper a couple of years ago, 2014. Derrick Henry on the flip side of that in 2015 with 395 carries. They could beat you really that way, but it seems like this team's going to have a lot more balance is what I'm expecting.
Right. And I should have mentioned the 2012 team offensively. I mean, they were really bad. They had two 1,000-yard rushers. You know, what A.J. throw for 3,000 yards? That was a pretty incredible offense, I thought. When they were clicking, they were really good. Of course, you know, A.J. was a really, really good quarterback. And I think that's what makes the difference. When you have a quarterback who can throw the football, who can distribute it to those kinds of weapons that they had, Christian Jones, Kevin Norwood, Amari Cooper, you know, the tight ends that they utilized. Michael Williams obviously was one of those guys. You had Eddie Lacy and T.J. Yeldon. And you look at this offense, you've got great running backs, Damian Harris, Najee Harris. Josh Jacobs is a different kind of player. Brian Robinson is going to be a great, great player. You've got tight ends. I mean, Ryan, they've got really several very talented tight ends. You know, this offensive line, I think, has a chance to probably be as good as any they've had since 2012, maybe better than any since 2012. I'm not going to say better than that group for sure, but, you know, and you look at the wide receivers. I mean, those three sophomores are off the charts. Talking about Ruggs, Smith, and Judy. And then you've got Jaylen Waddle coming in. I think that has got a chance to be really, really good. Terrell Shavers is the big, tall Texan that redshirted last year. He's a different target at about 6'5", 6'6". Yeah, I mean, you know, if the quarterback can distribute the ball to all those guys, you know, if he can stretch the field and utilize every part of the field and open up the running game even more, I think this offense has a chance. But you got to be able to utilize all those weapons.
Rodney, I mentioned to the audience just a couple of minutes ago that you told us about a guy before we really ever knew just the name. Well, the last two press conferences that I can remember, even though Nick Saban did not say the name out without coming out, but it's pretty implied that he was talking about Jaylen Waddle. Jalen Waddle has showed up in the first 13 practices here in Tuscaloosa, has been a head turner in practice, and I'm sure that's what you're hearing as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty easy to spot when you see a guy like that. He's got a little bit of, again, I'm just trying to draw a picture for your listeners. I'm not saying he's this guy or that guy, but he's got a little bit of David Palmer in him where he can shake people in a small area, and you know, he can make two or three people miss at one time. I mean, he's kind of got that kind of ability. And he's got the acceleration that kind of reminds you a little bit of Amari Cooper. I mean, he's got some jets. So he's got a chance to be an outstanding player. I don't think there's any question about that. I think he can be a difference maker pretty early on as a receiver, but also as a punt returner, kick returner, especially punt return. I think he's got a chance to be really, really good.
I'll read you a tweet that's Matt Womack's father just put up on the Twitter account about 15 minutes ago, which we by now we know that the injury gives a little bit more description here. He said Matt hurt his foot again in practice. He broke 2 of the 6 screws that were installed in his foot back in the spring. They removed the plate, added 1 long screw down the center of the bone. Everything went well, but there is going to be recovery. In your opinion, how does this affect Alabama's offensive line as a group?
Well, from a depth standpoint, obviously you've lost a guy that was started 14 games last year as a sophomore, redshirt sophomore. And, you know, so obviously I think right now, as I look at it, you're either going to have Wills or Leatherwood. We're probably going to fill that spot where Womack started last year because I think he had a ways to go to get back to where he was. That's really kind of – and now this injury sets him back even further. But just the depth, you know, you had a guy that was, you know, kind of a very experienced player. So that obviously is that hurts you a little bit. But, you know, they've recruited well on the offensive line. So some of those younger guys like a Scott Lashley are going to really have to step up and, you know, kind of take on a little bit of an added role, I think.
Rodney, in your opinion, when you talk about some things that you're going to be trying to watch for as we listen to Nick Saban, as we gather some information behind the scenes, what kind of intrigues you the most about the second scrimmage going into Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Well, I know it probably hasn't been much of a topic on your radio show, but I'm still pretty intrigued about the quarterbacks. You know, is this the decision making final? I guess you could say final straw in the decision making process of who's going to start, I don't really know that. I think my guess is they probably already have a real good idea who's going to be the starter. That's just kind of my guess. But I think that it's important for both those guys to go out there and kind of give it their best shot here in this second scrimmage and see where everything falls.
Rodney, but in years past, haven't we always come to know the second scrimmage is more of a run scrimmage, the one that's kind of open?
Yeah, they've done that. Yeah. They've kind of split those scrimmages up. You're right. So, I think first and foremost, when you're talking about a run scrimmage, to me, it's going to be real physical. You know that, Ryan. So you certainly want to avoid injuries. So obviously that's always the key. But, it's going to be a physical deal if that's what they're going to focus on, the run in this one. And I don't know that that's what it's going to be, but you may be right.
Rodney, we know what we can get from Damian Harris, and we expect big things going his final year here at the Capstone. Let me ask you about Brian Robinson. With Najee going down with an injury in the last 7 days, I'd love to get your thoughts maybe on Brian Robinson taking advantage of an opportunity going into tomorrow afternoon.
Well, I think certainly that gives all of them, the Jacobs and Brian Robinson more opportunity. I think Najee will be back in about a week or so. I really do. I think he'll be cleared to play in that first game against Louisville unless something changes dramatically. That's kind of what I hear. But Brian Robinson's a great player, man. I mean, to be honest with you, and look, all due respect to every one of those guys, but I think Brian Robinson's as good as anybody out there. And I think he's going to be a big-time player. He's big, strong, fast. He's legit. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think they're going to use him in different ways. I think you might even see him line up as an H-back some this year. Don't be surprised to see that. We saw that a little bit last year. He's just a really talented player. Ryan, he can do it all. And yeah, I think Brian Robinson, how much what his involvement is in terms of the rotation this year, I really don't know yet. But man, I'm telling you, he's the real deal.
Rodney, I was watching you and Brandon Cameraman break down some of the practice observations earlier and some thoughts. You also spent a lot of time with Brandon talking about the young defensive linemen. I'm not asking you to repeat a lot of those word for words, but a lot of guys grabbed your attention, and even some guys that you talked about future development, maybe that may not be here now, that could be big-time developmental projects in the future that may be a little bit better shape maybe a year from now under spending a year in Scott Cochran's system.
Yeah, really, I think Christian Barmore from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, he's a true freshman. I think, he looks really good right now. I think, now, again, will he be in the rotation this year? I'm not sure, but he's got a lot of potential. I think they're really excited about his potential. We'll see how Stephon Wynn comes along. Of course, he's injured right now, but I thought he looked better physically than what he did in the spring as a true freshman. And I think when you look at Fedarian Mathis, who's a redshirt freshman, I think he's come a long, long way, Ryan, physically. I think probably he still has a little bit of technique-wise improvement to make, but he's just a redshirt freshman. I think he'll probably lend some depth this year. And I do think Tavita Musaika, the JUCO transfer, I think he's impressed him with his ability. He's got good feet. He's one of those plugger types in the middle, and I think he's going to give them what they need this year in terms of that 10 or 12 reps a game, maybe more. But I think they're pretty pleased with where he is.
What are you expecting from Cahoe, the linebacker transfer? Not a transfer, but maybe a change of plans
Right.
as far as an enrollment. What are you expecting that he could give Alabama? I know some depth, but do you think he could be a guy that can be an impact guy, maybe special teams? Do you think he can get him up to speed that quickly to big impact for 2018 early part?
Early part of the year, maybe not. I mean, I don't know. He's just now. Yesterday was his first day in pads, so he's got a little ways to go. Probably as a linebacker. I mean, certainly I think depth-wise that could change things, but he needs to get a little bigger. He's probably between 215 and 220. They probably need 10, 12, 15 pounds on him by next year this time. But he looks really good. He's very athletic, moves well. I could see him on special teams. He looks like a special teams coverage guy. I mean, because he's so athletic, he's got great feet, he can change directions, he's physical, for his size. And again, he's not small by any means, but he's got to get bigger, I think, Ryan, to play, in the SEC in the middle. like I said, he's probably 215, 220. When we see him up around 230, 235, he'll be closer to what he needs to be.
If you want to go to the website, it's very simple, TiderInsider.com. You can become a member pretty instantly there. You can go to the website, check on becoming a new member. They've had a lot of coverage of Alabama, a lot of video clips, a lot of written articles as well. And always the forums is a great place to hang out, especially when there's a scrimmage inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, because there'll be a lot of information exchanged there on Rodney Orr's Tider Insider, your source for Crimson Tide news and views. Rodney, as always, I appreciate your time, and I'll see you tomorrow inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ryan. Take care.